Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to talk about a journey that I bet every single Flask developer has been on, the one that starts with a beautifully simple little script and, well, grows into something much, much bigger. If you've ever watched your clean project slowly turn into something a bit more chaotic, you are definitely in the right place. Let's get into it.
You know, this quote from Armin Ronacher, the guy who actually created Flask, it really hits the nail on the head. The world of web development moves fast. So what we're going to explore today are the patterns that are considered best practice right now for building Flask apps that are not just powerful, but also built to last.
You know how it is, right? Every great Flask app starts out so beautifully, usually just one elegant Python file. That's the magic of Flask. But as you start adding more features, more routes, more logic, that initial simplicity can kind of turn into a trap. We all start here with that glorious hello world. It's so clean, it's easy to read, it just works. But fast forward a few months, and suddenly you're in what we call the monolithic trap. That single app.py file has exploded, the code's a mess, testing feels impossible, and oh my gosh, the circular imports start popping up. And if you're on a team, those merge conflicts become your daily headache. Sound familiar? I thought so. Right, this is the big question. How do we keep that elegance we loved about Flask in the first place, but scale up without creating a monster? Well, the good news is there is an answer, and it comes down to a couple of really smart design patterns.
Okay, so listen up, because this is probably the single most important pattern to solve this problem. It's called the application factory. I want you to think of this as the bedrock, the solid foundation for any app that's going to grow. It completely changes how you create and manage your application from the get-go.
So what is it exactly? Well, instead of just creating an app object at the top of your file that just sits there globally, you wrap its creation inside a function. We usually call it create_app. And the key phrase here is on demand. This lets you create multiple, totally separate instances of your app. And that right there, that is an absolute game changer, especially for testing, because you can spin up a fresh app with a specific configuration for every single test you run.
So what does this factory actually look like? Let's break it down. It's a pretty simple recipe, really. First, you define that create app function. Inside, you create the Flask app instance itself. Then you load up your configuration from a file or class. After that, you initialize all your extensions, like your database. Then, you register your blueprints. We're getting to those in a sec. And finally, you just return that fully built app. See? It's just a recipe. A really clean, organized, and totally predictable process.
All right, so if the factory is our foundation, what do we build on top of it? Well, that's where blueprints come in. They are like your Lego bricks. This is how you're finally going to break free from that one giant file of routes.
Think of a blueprint as like a self-contained little mini app. It's a collection of related routes and functions. So you might have one blueprint that handles all your user authentication stuff, another one for your product pages, maybe a third for handling payments. Each one is its own little world, and you just plug it into the main application inside your factory function.
Okay, let's be real. We've all seen this before, right? This is the before picture. It's one massive file, and you've got your user profile routes mixed in with your product routes, mixed in with your payment routes, and look, it works. At first, but you know what happens next. It gets harder and harder to find anything or change one thing without breaking something else.
And ta-da! Look at the after. So much cleaner. The big thing to notice is that we're not using @app.route anymore. We're using @bp.route for blueprint. Now, each part of our app, the auth stuff, the product stuff, it all lives in its own file with its own blueprint. Everything is separate, it's focused, and just way, way easier to deal with.
Now let's pull back and look at the whole project structure. This is the bird's eye view. Each of those blueprints gets its own folder, maybe with its own templates and other files. Your whole project basically becomes self-documenting. It's so much easier for you or anyone else on your team to jump in and know exactly where to go to work on authentication logic. It's just maintainable. Okay, so the factory is awesome for organizing routes. But wait, there's more. It also totally changes the game for how we handle configuration and all those Flask extensions we love to use.
You know how you can end up with a messy pile of config variables? Yeah, we can do better.
With this pattern, you use classes for your configuration. You create a base config class, and then other classes like development config or production config that inherit from it. Then, inside your Create App factory, you just tell it which config to use, and bam, you've switched your entire environment. So clean and so much harder to mess up. And this exact same idea, this decoupling, it applies to our extensions too. This is super important. The old way, on the left, you do db equals c alchemy app. That forever ties your database object to that one specific app instance. The better way, on the right, is to create the db object without an app. Then, inside your factory, you connect it by calling db.initApp. This is so crucial because it lets that one db object work with any app instance you create, which again is exactly what you need for reliable testing.
Okay, so at this point you might be thinking, wait a minute. If my blueprints are in their own files and they don't import the main app object, how does all this work? Well, this brings us to what feels like a bit of Flask magic, context.
I mean, if we're trying so hard to avoid circular imports by not having our blueprints import the app object, how on earth can a function in a blueprint access something like app.config or the database? That's the million-dollar question, right? And the answer is a really clever feature called context locals. What Flask does is pretty brilliant. During a request, it makes certain objects available that act like they're global, but they're not really. There's the application context, which gives you current app, a stand-in for whichever app is currently handling the request. And there's the request context, which gives you things like the request object itself and the user's session. And that is the magic right there. It's how your blueprint code can just use current app.config, and it works without ever having to do a messy import app. So, we'll leave you with this question to chew on. Is your current Flask app a monolith that's just waiting to crumble under its own weight? Or is it a factory that's ready to scale up to whatever you throw at it? The patterns we've covered today, the factory, blueprints, and contexts, are the tools you need to build Flask apps that are organized, testable, and ready for the future. Thanks for tuning in.